Hi, welcome to the Capital Coffee Connection. I'm Liz Hirsh Naftali, and today I am thrilled to be speaking with the governor of the great state of New York, Kathy Hochul. And
Thank you.
Kathy, thank you and welcome. And I'm having a coffee here, and I'm in Tulsa. Where are you this morning?
I am in Midtown Manhattan, looking out a window at a very foggy morning, but otherwise I can usually see the East River. So it's a beautiful place to be, but not the best weather this morning.
Okay, well, it's a beautiful sunny day here, so we'll balance it.
Of course it is.
Yes,
Of course it is.
yes. Thank you for joining me. And, one of the things for me was watching politics become first very much right, left, and people not speaking, and also people demonizing others. And for myself, I was learning that people on both sides have interesting stories. And if we can go back to who they are as humans and share that with the American public, that maybe we have a chance to have some really good dialogue and to stop otherizing people. And so for me, this is that opportunity. And I want to thank you for making a few minutes so we can share your story with the American public, because I know normally you get like a couple minutes and it's about an issue. So we're going to take a few minutes and just get to know who you are, your background. You're Irish American. You grew up in a family. You're the second of 6 children. And what I would love to do is just go back for a moment and tell us what it was like to grow up in a family. And I know that your family struggled for years. And what it was like, because sometimes people look at you and you're in this green suit and you're the governor of the great state of New York, but you also start pretty humbly and in a place that wasn't easy.
No, and I appreciate that. It's not something I speak about all the time, but I know how blessed I am because I'm in this position. I can wear a nice green suit, but there was a time we used to get our clothes at used clothing stores when I was growing up. And we struggled, but we didn't know we were struggling, I guess I would say. It was just what everybody else was doing. My parents used to live in a trailer park, and I still go back to the diner that's right around the corner. I'll be back there next weekend to just connect with the people and make sure they never think I forgot them or the fact that they're still struggling. My dad was able to get a job at the Bethlehem steel plant where he worked with his father, another immigrant who used to work in the migrant fields of South Dakota trying to get money because they wouldn't hire the Irish when they arrived. So my family found their way to the steel mills of Buffalo, and that changed our fortunes in the sense that it was a union job. My dad had a union card. And so we benefited from that. And then eventually my dad got a college degree and was able to get out of the trailer park. And so I lived in a very little tiny place with my brother and watched the family grow and grow and grow. But my mom used to try and make ends meet. We'd have Spam sandwiches. You ever have Spam? You fry it up and put butter on it and put it in a sandwich and tell the kids that is dinner. Or we had pancakes a lot for dinner. So mom was always trying to make ends meet to feed 6 or 8 of us, my dad. And going to the grocery stores and the clothing stores and having to put our clothes on layaway if we did get to a new store. Those discount stores, they let you go to a separate line. It was kind of embarrassing when you were a kid. So there was a stigma, but, my parents raised us as social justice Catholics, and we were involved in all the battles there. Marching against the Vietnam War and talking about civil rights. And, we knew who Dr. King was while he was still alive and talked about how important it was to fight for others, even when we didn't have a lot. So that's really embedded in me, that seeing people struggle in my early days and having similar challenges when I started out in married life and had to leave a job I loved with Senator Moynihan. All I wanted to do since I was a kid was, work for a senator in the Capitol someday. I don't know where I got that idea, maybe studying government in school. And I finally got there. And I had to leave it because there's no childcare we could afford. So I would say where I grew up, Liz, it was a typical blue-collar upbringing. We didn't think we're any better or any worse than anybody, which is how I still am. I don't think that because I'm the governor of New York that I've any better than those people in the diner I'll be looking forward to visiting or the family I'm going to sit with on Long Island later today. So I love doing that. I love seeing people in their elements and connecting with them and letting them know, listen, I may have a fancy title, a big shot title, but it never went to my head and I never forgot where I came from.
Yeah. It's important. And that is a message that people need to understand. And I think also beautiful that while you had very little, your family was actually talking about others and how to help others. And I believe that is America. That is who we are as people. And we should never forget it. Thank you for sharing that. And then talk a little bit because, in school, you also, for me, a lot of leaders talk about teachers that inspired them or someone that saw them when they were very young. And you said you always wanted to be a senator or in government, but What did you get from teachers that gave you strength to believe in yourself?
Absolutely. It goes back to my public education, Hamburg Middle School, and Mr. Peter James, who I went to his wake just a few years ago, was my eighth grade social studies teacher. And he opened up my eyes to the world of government. As I mentioned, my parents were, had a picture of, my grandparents had a picture of John Kennedy when he was president on the wall next to a picture of the Pope. And that's the kind of Catholic household that my grandparents had. And spent a lot of time there. But my parents made sure we always knew about the presidency. We read the news when we were younger. And so I just listened about government and then went on a field trip with my parents down in Washington. And this is a long time ago, in 1968. Went to Washington, D.C. right after, it was Easter, right after Dr. King had been assassinated. And we were traumatized by that, how sad we felt that this could happen in America. And I remember seeing the fires in Washington. We were trying to visit the Capitol, but in the distance, you could see the riots and the city on fire. And then spent the summer watching the Democratic Convention, the 1968 Chicago Convention that everybody watches movies about. And so that was all in me. But Mr. James pulled it out. And when I saw through the books and through the learning about the different branches of government, they are supposed to be co-equal and separate. And then that field trip to see the Capitol, I said, that's where I want to work someday. All I want to do is, be a staffer. And how sad is that I never even aspired to elective office myself, because that's not what women did.
Right.
Little girls didn't think like that. And I'm so glad it's changed today, that when I saw a mom when I first became governor and she brought her little daughter up to me and says, look, you could be anything. You could be the governor of New York. It's the first woman. So we've come a long way. But when I was there, to be a staffer was the biggest deal I could ever aspire to. And I hit that at age 27 and I was done. That was my career path. Achieved it at age 27.
Yeah. And it's funny. I mean, when I grew up, and I'm not far, we're close in age, which was like, you did not think you could be the president. You could be the president's wife. You could work in the office. But now we have the ability. And when I see young people in DC, and I spend a lot of time there doing work, advocating, I always admire these groups of students, just seeing all these students, because you just don't know who among them and where they're from and what they aspire to. But now they do see people, women and diverse leaders. And you are the first female governor of New York. And, thinking about how long New York's been around and that it took you, but you're the first. And we always say you will not be the last.
That's what I say too. And, another influence in my life, though, was really my father, because he worked at the time, was going to school at night, working at the steel plant. We didn't see a lot of dad, but, he had that strong influence. And my mom spent so much time having babies and raising us. But when I was looking at colleges, I was going to be one of the first to even venture out into college. And my dad took me on a little road trip. It was such a big deal to me when I was 18 years old that I spent time alone with my dad, which you never got when you're growing up with a big family. You're always fighting for attention with all the other kids. And we went to two different colleges, and one you're driving by, one was at Syracuse University, and another school. And he said, Dad, which one you think? He says, you know what? The first one seemed like the place you'd go to learn to be the wife of a congressman. The second one, Syracuse, is where you learn to be a congressman. And he's the first person who ever articulated in my life that I could actually maybe go for that.
I love it.
And when I did win that seat in Congress, shocking the world back in 2011, my mom and dad were on the stage, and I told that story, and he cried because he didn't remember it, that he had told that. But I think that's a lesson to parents, that your kids are listening to you, and you may be able to show your belief in them, even in ways that you're not expecting in a random conversation. But I carried that with me all the way to, that year when I stood on that stage and said, we did the impossible. And this dad of mine believed in me way back. So influences from teachers and from family. I am so fortunate, because a lot of young people don't have that stable influence and people who encourage them at a young age. And I did. There was no barriers from the home front. It was just everywhere I went, I was the only woman. Every time I ran for office, I was the only one on the town board, the only one in one countywide office. I was the only woman to ever hold that seat in Congress. So I'm used to being the only woman, but I always so happy when I can be, at least somewhat of an inspiration to others and say, I did it and so can you.
Right. And also, I know that there was a point where you were in office and then you lost and then you went back. And I think that's also something important for people to understand. It wasn't just, okay, I'm going to fight for it and I keep rising. There were setbacks, but you just kept going and you had the belief in yourself that, and I know from looking at the world that you can lose, and you can lose once or twice, sometimes three times, but you keep fighting if it's something you really believe in.
You are so right about that. I won a tough race. It was the most Republican district in the state of New York. And, I stood up for Medicare for seniors, even if they were Republican seniors. And I go into the senior homes and diners and farms and really rural area and connected with a lot of people and let them know I cared about them, that I was from a simple background and I didn't have anything over on them. We went to public schools and we worked hard.
Yeah.
And so I lost that seat though, when after redistricting, because I wouldn't vote against the Affordable Care Act. And I knew that voting for it, was pretty much the end of my career, because it was at the time when that was, the issue that everyone was raising at the town halls, and a lot of people lost their seats.
And it
over the
wasn't
Affordable
popular
Care.
at that time.
No, it wasn't. But I knew it would be important for that district because I saw the struggles of, mom came up to me at a county fair and said she had a 4-year-old who has leukemia, who otherwise wasn't going to be covered because he had a pre-existing condition, and because of the Affordable Care Act, that it was now covered, and she didn't have to worry about her little boy. And a story like that, I'm a mom, is like, it's all I need to know. I'm voting, to make sure that we keep this, even though the rest of the district didn't reward me. But I dusted myself off for about a year, and I was given the opportunity to run for lieutenant governor, and transitioned from into that role and embraced it and just went every corner of the state, meeting people, talking to them, engaging, and letting them know that I was the face of, of an administration that is fighting for you. And so I, I think setbacks are important in life. You don't look forward to losing an election, and I'm running in my 16th election. I won all but that one, but it does steel you for, for the rigors of what you have to do when you're a woman running for office, even local office. I remember running, when I was in my 30s with a couple little kids running for local office. People saying, you're a nice lady, and the local newspaper said, yeah, she's a housewife from Hamburg. Like, my husband laughed. He says, they described you in the newspaper as a housewife from Hamburg. He says, you are anything but a housewife. I'm never home.
Yeah.
It was kind of a joke.
He knew the
But
answer. Exactly.
yeah, so that was funny that I had
Yeah.
been a counsel. I had started businesses. I had done a lot with my life, and they described me as a housewife. So, there's been those shots, but they don't knock you down. Just like I brush off a lot. And maybe it's from growing up with those, 4 brothers. We're always pushing each other around and fighting for attention and everything. And so I don't know. I think life hands you all kinds of opportunities, and you seize them. I've always been a risk taker. I'm pretty fearless.
Yeah.
There's nothing I won't do. And so I think that's also a trait that women should develop and nurture in themselves. If it doesn't come naturally, just be so bold, be so audacious, and you're willing to do anything. And you just never know where you're going to end up. I mean, this is not where I am right now. Not in a million years would I've ever dreamed I'd have this honor of
Exactly.
serving 20 million New Yorkers and,
And
being the
fighting
chief
for them every
executive.
day. And that's what your parents taught you when you had nothing and you were a little kid and your family was, needing support, and it wasn't easy. So I think sometimes the resilience of childhood is something that stays with us as well.
Agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit, like, what is the best advice you've received and the worst advice you've received? Sometimes people say it's the same, by the way. I don't know.
No, that's right. That's right. It's funny. I don't think about advice much. Well, first of all, the worst advice I had was don't run for office. And so
Yeah.
they said, don't run, especially that seat in Congress. I was told by everybody not to run for that because they said there was no chance you're going to win. It's going to ruin I was already an elected official in my county, but don't do it. You're going to lose.
Yep.
And I had to overcome that. People in my own party, high level positions, said, we will not support you if you run for this because you will lose, and we don't want to be tainted with your loss. And that's how harsh it was. And so I was on my own, and that was very harsh. But you know what? That was the best advice, because when they said that, it made me feel like I'm doing this now because of that.
Right. And I
No
think
matter
also
what.
then probably you use that to support young women and other women because they look at you and they say, what should we do? And you're like, go for it.
I try to meet women around the state, and especially when I was lieutenant governor, I'd go to communities and the local officials would have me meet someone that was thinking of running for office. And one woman said, well, I'd like to run for county office, but I've got, a couple little kids here. And I said, listen, when I ran, my kids were preschoolers and I wasn't home a lot, but I also took them many places, and I took them knocking on doors.
Right.
I took them to the chicken barbecues. I wanted them to see that their mom had the guts to do something a lot of other moms were not doing.
Yeah.
Because I wanted, especially my daughter, to say that she could do anything as well. And I told this mom looking to run, say, our job is not to raise kids, it's to raise adults. We raise people that are outward looking, that they feel they owe something to their community. They want to give, they want to serve, they want to make sure that they never miss an election, because my kids knew that they must vote every election.
Right.
So there's values you could teach them. Everybody has their own path, but if you look at that as an opportunity, don't let the struggles of trying to figure out who's going to watch the kids when you have to go to the town board meeting when your husband's working late, don't let that be the reason you don't run, because it all works out. And that's what I tell the young women who are in office as well. This too shall pass, my mother would say.
Yeah.
This too shall pass. They're going to grow up. Now I've got a 3-year-old granddaughter, so the world changes, and don't let anything hold you back. There's no reason. So much of the lack of confidence that women have is in their own head. And I say this to them, no one makes you feel confident or not confident. It's up to you how you feel.
Yeah.
So I have to walk into rooms where I will assure you I'm feeling rather intimidated, right? And I walk in there like I own the place because I have to. You fake it till you make it, my mom would say too. Just fake it till you know about good advice.
Yeah.
Just fake it. So you walk in like a room full of Wall Street executives, and I'm the kid from parents lived in a trailer park. Walk in with the power as if it's yours already, and then they will respect that. And that's what I've learned along the way as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, I have that same, but I say to myself when I go into a room where I feel I will be intimidated, I say, puff up, puff up, puff up, don't shrink. Like, I just bring it down to like, okay, you can do this. And if you can say that to yourself before you go into a room, or like what you've said, you then set the stage. Because if you go in slurking and insecure, they pick up on it quickly. And then you don't have really a chance. And it's an important thing. And I think it's an important message for women, but it's also an important message for men, because they also need to understand there is something intimidating that they can also help to support women.
That's right. When I walk into a room of all men, that for some people would be something they just would want to walk right out of. And if there's men in the, so I absolutely believe, I raised a great feminist son because what he saw his mother go through. He says he supports women, if his working wife, like you would not believe, and I'm proud of that. But he knows that it's tough when she walks in a room with other executives herself as a young woman. And so he's always coaching her and, working on confidence, and has an enormous amount of confidence. I am so proud to see even what this younger generation is able to do. But it's how we present ourselves, and others are watching. And you're right, never shrink in a room, because that'll be your reputation when you walk out.
Right.
She's in this position, I'm in this position, and do we have confidence in her? If I don't have confidence in myself, then why should they have confidence in me? It's that simple. So
Exactly.
I have an abundance of confidence, I assure you.
Yeah. So I know I'm respectful of your time. We have one last part, which I love to do with all the different leaders. And it's like a rapid question, very simple, fun ones, but they're kind of get to know Kathy.
Sure.
Favorite sound?
Favorite sound is birds.
Nice. Favorite color?
Blue.
Favorite scent?
Lemon.
Who is your biggest cheerleader?
My husband.
Are you a dog or a cat person?
Mostly cat, but I think dogs are adorable, but I'm very allergic.
Okay. But you're not allergic to cats?
I am, but we don't have a cat now.
Okay.
We had a cat for 21 years.
Okay.
And I tolerated it, but I love them both.
Yeah.
And my daughter, son-in-law, have this big, fluffy sheepadoodle who's just adorable.
Yeah.
My son has a cat, so I get to see both of my kids.
Nice. What is your favorite meal?
Want to hear something pathetic? Just basically a hot fudge sundae. If I could just pick anything I wanted, it would just be a hot fudge sundae. I'm on the road. I don't like to sit down with fancy white tablecloths and you sit there all night. I like to just eat on the run. I'm always eating in the car. I grab yogurt all the time. But no, I go right to, if I could just pick any meal, I go right to dessert.
Well, the funny thing was my next question was dessert. So you just nailed it in one question.
Yeah. But yeah, if I really wanted to go wild, I'd put a brownie at the bottom of the hot fudge sundae.
That was really good.
That's
favorite TV show growing up?
Leave It to Beaver. We watched those kind of shows.
Yes.
And the Flintstones. But I loved the Monkees when I was like probably eighth grade. There was a rock group. We just thought they were so cool. And then I watched the Partridge Family.
Yeah, me too.
You know, we watched all those shows, right?
Yeah.
Brady Bunch. Like me, I love the Brady Bunch.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about that the other day and I hadn't really asked a question, but those are like shows that I also, and I'll tell you the other one that
Yeah.
I loved was I Love Lucy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I saw every episode many
Yeah.
times. You know, she was born in New York in a small community. We have a statue to her. And the National Comedy Museum is there too in Jamestown, New York, in honor of Lucy.
I love it. Do you have a favorite book? Something you've read recently or just something that you read that sticks out as really an outstanding piece for you to have read?
You know, I've been reading books on Teddy Roosevelt a lot. There's Teddy Roosevelt on leadership because I think about him and Franklin Roosevelt, who were both governors before they became president. And especially Teddy has beautiful speech that I have quoted. It's in my office now as well. The man in the arena. And so he talks about how difficult it is to be a leader and how that's the person who's in the arena getting bloodied and marred every day and the timid souls on the side who criticize. You know, they'll never know the great, the highs of success, but they don't know the lows of loss. But you have to be in the arena fighting. My young staffer had it made to The Woman in the Arena, and we
I love
have
it.
the speech book. So I'm inspired. I read a lot of biographies of people who've had the challenges. Hugh Carey was a governor who was governor when New York had its financial crisis in the 70s. And so I was reading that not long ago, just looking for, inspiration from people who've been in the tough jobs, the tough decision making they had to do at the time. And knowing I'm not alone because there's, 56 other governors before me.
Do you have time to exercise?
Yes, I do. I get up early, go on the treadmill. I do a lot of stretching to keep limber. I try to swim when I can if there's a pool around someplace. So yeah, I do that, and I walk like a fiend.
Yeah.
I walk the streets of New York every day. I mean, if I'm on my own with my husband, we walk at least an hour up and down, up and down the east side, walk along the river.
Yeah.
I walk everywhere.
And do you listen to music or is there certain music that's, your favorite?
When I'm walking, I'm usually listening to my husband. So we take walks together. And that's pretty much our pastime. We've lived apart a lot because of my career when I was in Washington, and even as governor, we've only been together the last couple of years because he lived in a different city, and now I got him to New York City. So
I love it.
I just cherish my time with him. We've been married 41 years, and it's almost like every day's a new day with him. I know most people don't have that beautiful relationship, and I don't take it for granted, but I treasure it because it is so special.
Yes, it is. What is your superpower? I think you sort of talked about it, but what is it if you would be able to put in a sentence?
I'm fearless. I'm not afraid of anything. Snakes, I'm not a real fan of. I will say that. But there's no situation that I'm ever afraid of because to me, it's a mental challenge whether I can get through it or not, and I challenge myself every day. The decisions that come to my desk, whether it's a natural disaster, people's lives are at risk, or I have to send in the National Guard, or I'm trying to deal with a spike in subway crimes and what we're going to do about that, the anxiety, or and a prison strike that went on for 22 days. It was a very tense time in our state, thousands of workers off and people unguarded. It was just a couple of weeks ago. Meanwhile, I was doing my budget at the same time, which is in its own right the very tense time of the year to get this accomplished and bring together very, very different opinions on how to get it done. And so all that was going on around the same time. And, it's almost like the strength of being a mom or a woman. You deal with disasters as they come and you never let any of them overwhelm you. You just pick it off, solve it, move on, check on, make sure they're doing what you wanted them to do. But no, you just cannot be overwhelmed. You just have to say, there's nothing I can't do. And that's my superpower.
I love it. So my last question is, what brings Kathy Hochul joy? And if you have joy, how do you spread that joy?
I have a natural sense of joy because I know I'm so fortunate in life. And so what I do is understand that I love what I do every day. There's not a moment I don't cherish. I know these are not forever positions. And so I know that I had to, value what I have now. I love that seat in Congress. I thought it was the greatest job I'd ever have. And I was devastated when I lost it. And now here I am with something I love even more. So that's a lesson I learned. But I have this constant state of joy because my mother had this. and she would walk into any room and light it up. And she went through terrible health problems. Her mother was a victim to just domestic violence. She was abandoned when she was little. I mean, she had a terrible home life. And yet all she wanted to do was create a stable home for her family. And she had 8 kids, and she ended up starting a home for victims of domestic violence and becoming a champion. But eventually ALS took her down. So she lost her voice, which she had used for so many others to be their advocate. So I know that, my mom lost her mom when she was a 16-year-old. I was always grateful to have my mom as long as she was with us. So I have this sense of appreciation for everything, but I also know what brings me joy is to be able to spread a little bit of that to others. And so I know when I'm walking it, if I'm on a subway, the other day, and I take a moment to stop by and shake a hand with somebody and let them have a selfie, if they think it's a big deal to meet the governor. I meet people in the diners all the time. I just walk up and talk to everybody. It's so little for me to give that couple of seconds to smile at them and say, hi, how are you? Or look them in the eye and let them know they have value no matter who they are on the streets of New York or places I go. And that might bring a little bit of joy out there that I don't need to keep it all up myself. I've got plenty for me.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And, I think that sometimes you may underestimate, but the joy you spread and the kindness and being there for people is a lasting. People are looking to be heard and seen and to be acknowledged. So I think we could spend a little more time just spreading a little more joy and being kind. And thank you. And I hope that people leave listening to you and going out and doing that. So thank you so much for sharing your time. And I know you're very busy. And good luck and take good care of yourself because we need you out there to spread joy and to do the hard work and be there for the people.
Thank you for the conversation. It was very thoughtful and heartfelt on your end as well. I could feel that. So thank you for the efforts that you're undertaking to try and heal a very divided nation.
Yeah. Thank you. Hi, it's Liz. Please join me every Tuesday for coffee to talk about heart and humanity with our elected leaders. Remember to hit subscribe to get an alert when a new episode is live and for exclusive content. Ciao.